So he goes to Jones the baker. And he says to Jones the baker, he says, you must bake me the best loaf of bread that has ever been made. For I have fallen in love with one of the magical fairies of the lake Glini van Vak, and I must win her heart. Now Jones didn't believe in fairies and laughed at him, but he was the kind of man who couldn't walk away from a challenge. So he set to work straight away, kneading the dough and preparing the best loaf of bread he'd ever baked. And when Farmer Gwyn went early in the morning to collect the loaf of bread, there was the sweetest smelling, freshest loaf, with sweet herbs that had been picked from the hills. He wrapped it gently, put it carefully in his bag, and once again made his journey up the side of the hills, up through the mountains to the magical lake. And once again, to his utter joy, as he came over the brow of the hill, there was the beautiful fairy, seemingly waiting for him, sitting on her rock. He ran up to her, fell on his knees once again, and presented her with the most beautiful loaf of bread that had ever been baked. He took it, she took it, and smelt. And for the first time, a smile crossed her face. She then turned and once again disappeared under the waters, and Farmer Gwyn waited expectantly. Nothing happened. But then a ripple seemed to be happening in the middle of the lake. The ripple got bigger and bigger and started to rise up into a great funnel of water, and suddenly in the middle of it there was the great fairy king himself, standing there looking down at Farmer Gwyn. So, you are another mortal who wants to marry my daughter. You think you have a chance? What you don't understand is that us fairies, we are different. We see things you cannot see. We have a sensitivity no mortal has ever experienced. Not only is it unlikely that you're going to pass the test I'm going to give you before you can marry my daughter, but it is unlikely that you will make her happy. And I fear that, like all the mortals before who have married fairies, you will only harm her and cause her pain. And I tell you this, that if you strike her more than 3 times, she will leave you and never come back. Give him a chance. No one's perfect. So Gwyn, believing that he would never strike such a beautiful being, readily agreed to the deal. The king turned and said, well, here is your task. And behind him, the waters opened. And from one side, the beautiful fairy appeared. And then from the other side, the beautiful fairy appeared again. There were 2 of them. They were identical twins. The king said, if you wish to marry the one you love, you must first pick her out. He looked at them. He studied their hair. Every single strand was identical. Their eyes, exactly the same. Their clothes, identical. The look on their faces, identical. Every breath in and out occurred at the same moment. It was utterly impossible. How was he to choose the right one? The king began to smile. He knew he'd won yet again. How many mortals had tried to succeed in this task, and how many had failed? Countless. Over thousands of years they'd been coming, and not one has succeeded in picking the one who he'd fallen in love with. The king began to laugh and was just about to command the beautiful fairies back under the water when one of them slightly moved her foot. Farmer Gwyn looked at it and he noticed that the ribbons were tied in exactly the same way as he had been so entranced by on the first day, and he knew it was she. Yes, she is the one I love. She is my wife. And the king had to accept that he had lost this time. And so he agreed to their marriage. and he gave them a dowry of magical cattle, magical sheep, and magical horses. And through the most wonderful celebration, a great fairy wedding that went on for 3 days and 3 nights, a great fairy band that never tired, a fairy feast that was never eaten, and the people danced day and night, seemed to be full of the energy of fairies. But finally it was over, and Farmer Gwyn and his new wife settled in the valley, in their farmhouse, with their beautiful dowry of the magical cattle, sheep and horses. The cows produced the most wonderful milk all year, the sheep the softest wool, and the horses never tired. So Farmer Gwyn and his wife did exceptionally well. They also were deeply in love, and from their love they produced 3 beautiful children. Everything seemed to be going so well. Then one day they were off to visit some neighbours, and the fairy princess was just about to mount her fairy horse when she realised that she didn't have her riding gloves. So Farmer Gwyn offered to go back into the house to collect them for her. While he was gone, she caught sight of the horse. How its powerful fairy muscles moved so smoothly beneath its velvet skin, and she was entranced by it. She was taken back to the land where fairies live with fairy horses, and she stood there like a statue. When Farmer Gwyn came out, he wondered what had happened to her. He came running straight up to her to awaken her from her trance, and she looked at him with tears in her eyes, saying, "You have struck me for the first time. If this happens 2 more times, all our happiness will be over."